I haven't started packing just yet, but we're getting ready for the scouting combine next week in Indianapolis. Will and I will both be there, all 32 pod together once again, just like we were in Mobile, Alabama. A reminder, this show brought to you by Prize Picks, the exclusive daily fantasy partner of the CLNS Media Network. I'm Mike Giardi. He's Will Parkinson. Will, I thought we'd come into this and sort of like, let's look ahead to the combine, and maybe are there guys that could dramatically impact their standing in the draft community and with the NFL teams, more importantly, by what happens at the combine through working out, through the interviews, all these different sorts of things. And you embraced it. So let's just jump right into it, because I think both of us are intrigued by one of the deepest positions in the draft, if not the deepest, and that being the defensive line, particularly the edge. And Jalon Walker, an extremely talented player out of Georgia, but the draft range, you look at like DJ and Dane Brugler, they got him in the top 5 and like no doubt, no brainer. And then some other people are like, he's more of a middle to back end of the first round. I've even heard people say second round. I know you love him, so I'm going to let you start off on Jalon Walker, what he brings to the table and what you're looking for next week.
Yeah, well, biggest thing, obviously, the combines. I think the combine's my favorite week of the year, they're not of the off season, because there's so much optimism and excitement or doomsday scenarios for everybody, and everyone's going to win the Super Bowl, or everyone's going to get every different player and get to meet a lot of these prospects. It's the one event where like truly the entire league dawns on a city that like can handle it, which is really cool. Look, I'll say this about Jalon Walker. I understand to an extent the concern of, hey, he's good at 2 positions. I get it. Like it is, we have this debate with Travis Hunter. It's a very different debate, but it's okay. You're good at 2. Can you be excellent at 1? That type of situation. That's fair. I don't think we should punish guys for being able to play multiple positions. That to me doesn't make a lot of sense. Oh, if he's only a linebacker, well, he'd be the best linebacker in the class. Well, if he's only an edge rusher, well, he's the second or third best edge rusher in the class. So, in my opinion, I don't know. What I'm looking for from Walker is more measurement based. He's a guy who, is he really fully 6'2"? If he's fully 6'2", hits that 240 to 250 mark, I think you feel really comfortable taking him in the top 10. If he's really 6'1" and a quarter, do you feel quite as good? What's the arm length look like? I'm curious what his short time shuttle is going to be. I expect it to be special. He's extremely explosive, and you can see he's really bendy and twitchy. You don't get to see it as much at the combine, stuff like that, but his motor is, we don't usually see this, and I know people get frustrated with it. The really good guys, top end of round 1, you don't always see a motor like that. Like, this is a dude who athletically could probably get away with not playing that hard, snap in, snap out. There's some of the chase down sacks he has at quarterbacks. The Texas game obviously is on full display. Georgia Tech as well, where he's chasing quarterbacks 40 yards across the field, and like nobody else in the field's running. You can see it. This is a Georgia defense that's back-to-back national champions. Has the end of last year, the loss, and then this year, obviously, still a really good team. Mm-hmm. He is playing. You can see him playing harder than everybody else. And again, he's that talented. So measurements for me are the biggest thing for Jalon Walker this week.
It's an awesome point. I have not, and I don't know how where you are in your process, but I have not talked to anyone who has dealt with Jalon Walker, particularly the people down in Georgia who know him better than anybody else. They just rave about the kid. They love the kid. And that was one of the things brought up. Never mind the freak athleticism. It's this kid brings effort and energy at all times. And to your point, you just don't always see that. My thing with him is, and I wrote this down, and I wrote it down again as I watched tape of him. Well, I don't know what he is. And
he hits people really hard.
Well, and you're right. Like, I'm not trying to penalize him because he's good as an off the ball linebacker. I'm not trying to penalize him because people project him to be good as an edge rusher. But when I watch him as an off the ball linebacker, I'm like, yeah, he's a solid player. He's a nice player. He is explosive, as you said. But as a pass rusher, which is where a lot of people see him, and which is where I think the people like Dane Brugler and Dan Jeremiah put him up high, is because they see him as an edge, right? Where they're projecting this guy to be essentially a double-digit sack guy, being that kind of player off the edge. And when I watch him as a pass rusher, to me, it's the effort plays, but his best stuff has been as a rusher, as an off-the-ball linebacker from the interior. dancing over the A gap, and doing it that way. And so I don't know that he has mastered either one of those yet. And I put some of the blame on Georgia. Like people want to see him do this. I know you have a team to run and you're trying to win a championship, but you have so much talent there. You could just say, hey, you know what? For 3 or 4 games, dude, we're just letting you do this thing. We're going to let you show teams that you can do this thing. And so I don't know if he is going to be, I don't know that I see him as an elite edge rusher. I'm having a hard time projecting that. I think your point about the measurables, like, okay, show me long arms, show me 6'2", a real 6'2", and 245, and then at least I can sort of, okay, I can sort of wrap my head around it more, but I'm just not totally certain where he's going to be best suited in the league. And I don't know that for me, if he's an off the ball linebacker, I'm not picking him in the top 10.
Yeah, no, I think he needs to go to a good defensive coach, no question. Of just like, hey, we're going to do a million different things with you. The reason I think he fits with the Jets so well and in that range, them and Carolina, the 2 spots, it feels like that he would fit the best. Well, first of all, both need D-line and linebacker help on both sides. Yep. And B, if you're the Jets, hey, can we play you early downs as an off-ball linebacker and kind of in our bigger sets where you can still cover and still blitz and do these different things? And then on our kind of our pass rush downs, et cetera, can you line up as an edge and beat people? And I was thinking of like the Willie McGinnis, Vrabel types that, they were more those 3-4 kind of outside linebackers. But, there's a lot of those guys, the Calvin Paces of the world, people remember, like, you're really a defensive end.
Right.
Can he do – again, it's a weird comp. It's not – look, he looks like Mykel Parsons in a lot of ways. Like, there's a lot of those comps you're going to see. I just am curious, can you find a role where it's like, hey, he's going to get us 10 sacks a year, but I can trust him in early downs just to fill the gap as a linebacker. I think he can project as an edge. It'll be interesting to see. Again, for me, it's measurements with him. The other Georgia edge rusher, another guy who you see varying things. People that we respect have him in the top 8. People we respect have him at 48. People around the league, I think, are split. He's 6'5", 265 in Mykel Williams. He looks like sculpted out of a magazine, Health and Wellness magazine. Again, Georgia guy, had some production, more production than obviously, a guy like Shemar Stewart, who we'll talk about. My issues with Mykel are kind of threefold. One, the analytical numbers on him are terrible. The win rate, pass rush win rate, and true pass set wins, it's bad. It's like he's in a tier with Trayvon Walker. So that's what you're betting on is, hey, can we get can we get another Georgia guy who we take high? Dan Brugler's high on him. He was high on Trayvon. And
Jacksonville, by the way, wouldn't do that again. If you gave him the true serum, they wouldn't draft
He probably wouldn't, but again, he's worked out, right? He's
a good player.
He's a good player.
I just don't know if he was the number 1 player in the draft.
Yeah, of course. But look, again, that's what you're hoping for. Hey, can we get a double-digit sack guy out of him? I think there's that possibility. Good against the run game, et cetera. Like, there is those things that are to his game that are impressive, and he has some nice wins. Here's my issue with him: is the numbers. Jalen Walker seeks contact. I don't know that I got to see Georgia Auburn in person this year, and I'm not calling him soft. So I want everyone to take this with a grain of salt. I'm never going to call someone soft like that. But
you're not Gerard Mayo.
I would, yeah. I would say Jalen Walker is a dude who, in a bar fight, he's probably the first guy in this draft class I'm taking because, like, I know that, like, that dude's going to go a million miles an hour and try to kill somebody. I don't know if Mykel has that kill switch. And I'm not saying you have to maybe all the time, but the pads were popping very differently for both guys. And I felt like Mykel plays a little more like, looks like Tarzan, plays like Jane, just a little bit. Not all the time. Again, I'm not casting that he's a soft player, but a little bit of like, you're left wanting, like, dude, you are jacked with freakishly long arms. You're 265 pounds. You're starting on this Georgia defense. Like, why aren't you killing everybody? You know, that's just where I leave it. I'm like, he's a guy I take again, and we'll talk about a couple of these guys. If I'm in the 20s, I'm a playoff team, then Tampa Bay at 19, perfect spot for Mykel Williams. Todd Bowles next to Vita Vea and all these different guys. And it's like, hey, I don't have that much pressure because I'm not a top 10 pick and I can develop a little bit. Sure, that's a great landing spot. But, like, at 6 or 5. Like, I don't know. You're asking a lot out of him, I think.
Yeah, I don't see it there either. So once again, I wrote down Georgia kind of annoys me. That's one of my notes because again, it just like let me see it. His best tape can be really awesome because he is so strong that he will absolutely just bury offensive linemen and tight ends at times, right? You see it, you're like, oh crap, like that's the high end of the player. But to what you said, there's just not, you just don't see it enough. And he suffered an ankle injury in week 1 against Clemson, played the whole year with it. So
Yeah.
did that maybe impact him? I don't know. That'll be a question that people will ask him, I'm sure, this week and leading up to the process of getting drafted in late April. But so that's part of the equation with him. But I just kept watching him wanting more. Like there's more there and I'm not getting it. And why am I not getting it? And when you say like with Walker, like the constant effort, and again, I'm not doubting his effort. There was more of a consistency to Walker's game than there was to Williams's game. And you know what's interesting about Williams, and I forget, I think it's it might have been Connor who brought up the idea of, is he better off gaining another 15, 20 pounds and playing on the interior because he has
long arms.
Because he could be, I mean, it's conceivable he weighs 270 at the combine at 6'5" with the long arms. And like maybe maybe that's a better path for him to be that sort of interior pass rusher. But he's got power, real power. Just again, need to see more of it.
Yeah.
And those arms. I wrote down go gadget arms. And then just like he's one of those guys, like, yeah, it's just like holy crap. But I want to see more. To me, he's a really good run defender. But I don't see the pass rush stuff, and that to me makes him a number 2 edge. Like if you have a good 1 and he's your 2, that's great.
He's a starter in the league. I don't think he's
for sure. Like we're not going to sit there and go that guy. I don't think he's going to bust. I don't think
he is either. But I think if you're going to take him where some people have him going, I think you're going to be left wanting a superstar level player, and I think you're going to get, the career path that. It's a weird comp. They're not the same body type, but like him and JFM could have a very similar type where like he's 5 to 8 sacks a year, elite run defender. He's really good as your number 2. And again, the number 2 versus number 1 thing is like, we get really into that. And like, I get why it's annoying for some people, and a lot of people like love the like terms. This is an edge 6. It's like, what the F is an edge 6? But he's a starter in the league. He's a really good guy as a part of a group. He's not going to be, I just have a hard time seeing him being like this, like 15 sack a year guy, Okay.
Well, and that's to me, and again, it's not an apples to apples comparison in terms of body type, but I see a little bit of Anthony Jennings of the Patriots, who's a really good run defender, but he's like a 3 to 5 sack guy. And usually it's because of games or he's playing against a backup and he has a 2 sack game. Like that's sort of what I see. And Anthony Jennings was a 3rd round pick. Mykel Williams is not going to be a 3rd round pick. And his measurables say he could be a top 10 pick. I wouldn't do it. I just would not do it. I want to go. Well, I know you have another edge. I do too. James Pearce Jr. from Tennessee, 6'4", 245 pounds. Right before we started this pod, you're like, he was the number 1 guy in terms of when we were coming into the season, he was the odds-on favorite to be the number 1 pick in the draft. He had a good year at Tennessee. Didn't have a great year. I think we went from 10.5 sacks a year and a half, 2 years ago to 7.5 this year. I actually thought to some degree his tape was a little bit better this year, a little bit more consistency. And I loved his effort. I mean, like talk about someone who he plays hard against the run, against the pass. He's not a great run defender, but he plays hard against it. Like he's trying. But super speedy, great first step. Not a ton of more. I expected more polish.
It's not really a plan. It's like if I don't beat you with my first step, I'm kind of just not there doing crossovers and hoping it works.
Yeah, so I think it was the same pod I was listening to with Connor was talking about, like the idea that like he's a snap guesser, and that's as he said, it's a skill. It is like if you can time it up, God bless. But when you don't time it up, do you have something else in your bag? And there are times where, again, you're like, dude, for the type of stuff that you have in your bag, or your ability, like your length, your speed, give me a little bit more. And I think it is in part why you're starting to see him slide down boards. I'd also bring up, and it was just brought to my attention by a reader, and I went back and looked at it. JC Latham whooped his ass last year. So 2 years ago, when Latham ended up, what was he, the 7th pick in the draft this past year. So look, you're going to face guys like JC Latham at the next level, especially if you're
a lot of JC Lathams.
Yes, especially if you're projected to be a number one edge type rusher for somebody. So that's sort of where I am with Pearce. And then there's obviously the off the field stuff, which I think is probably much more significant reason for him starting to, as you'll notice, the big name people, again, the Daniel Jeremiahs and Dan Bruglers, like he started to fall, and you're like, well, he hasn't played any games. What happened? And there's some concerns about the type of kid he is. And again, I don't have full details on this. I can't share with you like, oh, he did X, Y, and Z. It's just, it's been a chatter in the draft and in the pro football world. And you're starting to see that those information from the teams sort of now filter out their way to the media a little bit. And you're starting to see Pearce slide down the board.
Yeah. Again, I think he's got a lot. He's got an unlimited potential, and he's a really good pass rusher, and there's a lot of excitement there. Like, there's no doubt about it. I get, they're annoying, but I get a lot of tweets. Oh, like, I don't really know why what are people missing here? Like, look at these 8 clips. Like, wow. And you see it, and it is exciting. Like, I no doubt about it. The off the field stuff, we're not going to get into. I just would say, like, there's a lot there.
Right.
And people don't just make this stuff up. You get a lot of information on these guys year over year. And again, I don't think I trust him in the NFL right now playing against the run. And maybe he's more a souped up Will McDonald year one. And that's okay. Will McDonald is he's a 10 sack guy in year 2. Like, that's great. But I just would say, like, it feels a lot like, hey, I'm a better athlete than these guys, so I'm going to try to beat first step quickness, beat someone with speed, and that's it. And then, there's other stuff there, obviously. But again, he's going to have a lot of questions to answer this week. A lot.
Yeah. And to me, like, he's probably he's one of the 3 or 4 guys that, like, they're gonna put the white hot light on him. Like you're in the interrogation room, because I think people are going to want to know, because again, the talent warrants the idea that he is a upper half of the
there
first
as
round.
well.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one. What do you got? I know you have one other edge rusher.
Last edge rusher I'll go with here. Shemar Stewart is. Look, there's all the reasons to have questions. What position is he? Again, for some reason, I have an affinity, I guess, in this draft for sick athletes with no position. Well, not no position. He has multiple positions, and that's, again, a good thing. This is a little bit more clear cut. Is it like, hey, is it a full-time edge? Can he play inside a little bit? He did both in college. If you asked me who has the highest RAS score this week or next week, it probably will be Shemar Stewart. Texas A&M had a lot of those guys. That recruiting class was insane. Turner and Nolan and all these guys, and all of them are going to go in the top 90 picks in this draft. A little Danielle Hunter-ish with, like, the really poor, a lot of good college tape, but, like, no production. So you're kind of left like, hey, does Shemar Stewart just not know how to tackle? Like, what's going on here?
Yeah, he had a great 3 straight years of 1.5 sacks.
Yeah,
again, he's 6'5", 281. He's probably he's got to run under a 4.5, right? Or right around there.
I would bet you, if I had to guess, his agent and his coaches probably had him put on another 10 pounds to make him be like, hey, has any 290 guy ever run sub 4.5? It's even 280. I doubt it. I'm missing someone. Probably the first guy that'll ever do that. And he's got go gadget arms, as you mentioned, high effort player. He is bendy enough. He's strong enough. The hands are like, Jets fans won't want to hear this. He's probably the perfect fit at 7 for the Jets. I don't know if they could do it because they have A, other needs, and B, again, it's risky for a team that kind of can't really afford to miss. But Aaron Glenn in New Orleans and in Detroit, those big edge rushers, tall, physical, 270 plus, can play both sides, run and pass. Like the Saints took Davenport and traded up all those picks for Davenport back. If you remember, obviously Cam Jordan, look at Aiden Hutchinson. I'm missing somebody else in Detroit. They like that big edge rusher type, and the Jets missed JFM a lot last year. And can Stewart be souped up JFM and be a 10-sack? I don't know. Again, I'm not saying he's going to be, but if he runs,
do that at 7.
That's what I'm saying. If you can, it's too risky, for me to do it. But at the same time, if they did it, I'd be like, I kind of get it.
Yeah,
I kind of get it. It fits. It's just Shemar could be a guy that if he has a great week goes in the top 7, and if he has a only okay week, he'll still probably go in the first round in the top 20 because, again, he's got super long arms. He's huge. He plays hard. He can play multiple positions, and he's super athletic. This is what the NFL bets on. He is a prototypical traits guy. And again, he's a good kid. So he'll be a really interesting one. Again, when that time flashes, I feel Yates was on my pod and he was like, "What do you think? I'll run 4.58, 4.6?" And I was like, "I think he might run 4.48, man." And he was like,
"Yeah,
oh my god."
Yeah. Hey, just to answer your question, I hit the Google, and I'm not going to pronounce his name right. Aid Abawore in the 2023 draft from Northwestern, the defensive lineman.
Oh, yes.
Ran the sub. He ran a 4.49 at 280 pounds.
So I hope Stewart goes 290 and does it.
But, and to my knowledge, he has not made any sort of, or did not make any sort of impact on the Colts roster this past season. But again, different level of player too. We're talking about. No one was talking about the guy whose name I can't pronounce as the first rounder. So there's that. I wanted to talk about Josh Simmons.
Good. I want to go with one tackle as well. So that's as good.
The left tackle out of Ohio State, who not a ton of experience over there, left tackle, was putting together an awesome season before he suffered a non-contact knee injury in October and had to have surgery done for the year. He's 6'5", 310 pounds. And I just keep coming back to the idea of seriously, I enjoy the hell out of getting the clips of this guy and watching his stuff. He is a real left tackle. We're sitting here and you and I were debating the Will Campbell and the short arms thing and all this stuff. Kelvin Banks, is he a left tackle or is he probably he's a guard? A lot of people think he's a guard. Josh Simmons, to me, there's no question. He is a left tackle, but the medical is going to be critical, right? He's going to go in there. People are going to want to know how the knee is and what they can project with him. It was actually funny because I was in my head, I'm like, somebody got drafted who recently who blew out their knee in April. Jeffrey Simmons. Back in the 2018, 20, yeah, right. Blew out the knee, training for the combine, training for the draft, ACL tear. Tennessee ended up picking him 19th overall. He was definitely considered a top 10 guy that year. Falls to 19 because of the injury. Ended up playing 9 games that season for them. So just sort of showing you what the potential is for Simmons if the knee is healing up correctly and he is progressing at a good rate. It's not one of those things where you go, oh, we're not going to see him for a good chunk of the season. No, there's a real chance if it's healing properly, which is going to be critical. This is why I find him very important in terms of the combine. If it's healing properly, does he because it seems like now he's in the back half of the first round, because that's a good place, a sweet spot. If you're Kansas City, you need a left tackle. Do you say, look, we're not going to find much better than that? A guy would be picked in the top 10, 15 if he had been healthy. But now I'm wondering if the medicals are good. Does a team say, I'll roll the dice, I'll pick him at 15, and I'll wait the 4 weeks of the regular season or 6 weeks of the regular season that we don't have him because now we have a chance to get a franchise type left tackle at that portion of the draft, which is that's not an easy thing to do.
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page. I think You could argue he's tackle one in this class if he's fully healthy.
Prize Picks is the best place to get real money sports action. With over 10 million subscribers, billions of dollars in awarded winnings, Prize Picks has made daily fantasy sports accessible to all. You just pick more or less on at least 2 players and up to 6 for up to 1,000 times your cash. All-Star Weekend has come and gone, but now the NBA, we're getting down to the stretch run. You've got the NHL also in that sort of situation. College basketball heating up. We're heading closer and closer to March Madness. So just get involved. This is a good place to get involved. Download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Again, download the app today. Use the code CLNS to get $50 off instantly after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks, run your game.
So he'll be a big one. Will Campbell, I had on here. I don't want to talk too much about Campbell because I think gun to my head right now, him or Mason Grammer, the Patriots pick it for. That's just I think they go trenches and say, hey, like, we'll add elsewhere, but we need to beef both sides of the football up. My thing with Campbell is twofold. One, I think the biggest arm length question in the draft is Will Campbell, because I think if his arms check out and he's a tackle, the Patriots should take him. Right, like he's the best tackle.
But if his arms are over 33, we'd already know that, right? Like they wouldn't.
First of all, we'd already know that. Secondly,
yes.
I'm not saying he's a guard for no reason. Like I think maybe he's a right tackle. Maybe you could convince yourself that Rashawn Slater, hey, shorter arms, but like the talent is too good to keep him inside. We're gonna let him play right tackle, and we'll take our lumps. But like then, what do you do with Mike Onwenu? So then does he go back to guard, which he's better at? But, that's a whole nother conversation. He's gotten paid too. So honestly, who cares where Mike Onwenu wants to play
right.
At this point? Like, no, you gave him a huge deal. I mean,
he was like, he didn't love switching back and forth last year, but he did it.
Campbell and Onwenu as your right side is one of the better right sides are instantly in the division. You'd feel really good about that. So his arm length, it'll be interesting. Again, Jalen Milroe's hand size was a big question mark in Mobile. We got the answer, and it wasn't pretty. I guess I would ask, the quarterback thing is weird with the combine. We know, Milroe's going to test insane. Shedeur is not going to test insane. I would be shocked if he runs sub 4.75. Tyler Shough is the one that's the most interesting, and I say that because he's got a lot of momentum right now. This is what happens. A couple guys get momentum. They have a decent performance. People who didn't watch them all year start to watch them, and they get enamored with the tape.
He's pretty good, yeah.
He's an older prospect. He's extremely old. He's 20. He's going to be 26 week 4. His body is probably made of glass. So it's like, wow, why are we even talking about this guy? Well, because he has an absolute hose of an arm, and he's got that cool demeanor when he's back there. He's won some big games in college. He had a really nice year this year. He's going to throw. I don't know how many guys are going to throw or not. We see year by year, there's always varying. Some guys come in and say they're going to throw. They don't. Mm-hmm. I don't know if Cam and Shedeur will throw. They should. They won't. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. We'll see. Shough is going to do what Joe Milton did last year. And it's a different arm. It's a more functional, in my opinion, like NFL arm, not like I have a bazooka on like deep balls where my feet are perfectly set in the ground and no one's coming after. Like we saw Milton do better than expected. But again, you could see that type of performance where a lot of people going, ooh, like, hey, I know the injuries, but we took Penix at 8 last year. Does he make himself creep up in around 3 or 4 from a guy who was probably like a 6th rounder that you take a flyer? Mm-hmm. Does he become hey, I kind of actually like him better than Kyle McCord? Hey, Will Howard didn't go to Mobile, and are we getting enamored with the 4-game stretch? Like, he's just one to me that I don't know about testing wise, but I just think big physical dude with a huge arm, not Ryan Mallett-ish, RIP to Ryan Mallett, but that kind of like, whoa, like that ball is coming out hot all the time.
He throws the piss out of it. He opened my eyes in Mobile, and I had seen him play, but just when you compared him to the other guys that were there, Milroe obviously getting a lot of attention. I know your guy Riley Leonard. Like we're looking at all these different.
Boy Jackson Dart.
Yeah, right. And it was like the ball comes off his hand different than the rest of those dudes, So to me, 3rd round would still be too high.
Yeah, I don't disagree.
But you're right. There is that momentum that happens, and like, does someone become enamored with him? Like, would you? Let's throw with the Rams, for instance, with the Rams sitting there going, we're not sure what we're doing with Matthew Stafford. And, they've been leaking that they really,
it sucks.
yeah. Well, what's crazy? They've been leaking like, oh, Sean really likes Jimmy Garoppolo. I'm like, we've seen this movie before. Like, can we stop with again, I'm sure if he turned it over to Jimmy for a year and Jimmy could stay healthy, Jimmy would put up some really good numbers. But there are limitations to what he is. So could you see like a Jimmy? Oh, we drafted this Tyler Shuck. Oh, he's better than we thought he was. And then all of a sudden in like week 6, when Jimmy has a couple 2-pick games, Sean McVay is turning to Tyler Shuck to save his season. Like, I could see a team like that becoming totally enamored, thinking like, you put this talent with the brain that I have in my coach, and you watch. You'll be the find of the draft. And we know there are teams that love to do that. They love to prove that they're smarter than everyone else. I could see that.
You've been covering one of them for 25 years.
Yes. How's that worked out for them recently? Like, say the last 5-6 years? Not so great.
Mike, I want to ask you one guy before you give your last guy.
Yeah, shoot.
We talked a lot about the debate. I feel like around Travis Hunter has been kind of interesting this week of just, what is he? And I know he's going to, I guess, play corner and then, do some
receiver. Do some wide receiver drills, yeah.
I would just be interested in how he tests. I don't think it's like this monumental week for him. He's going to be a top 5 pick. The floor is the Jags. The ceiling's obviously number 1. He's one of those guys who's like such a good football player and probably the best corner in the draft and would be a really good receiver as well and all that stuff. If he doesn't test like great, right? If he's really 5'9", not 5'11", or, or whatever it is, I don't know. I'm just making up like things. I just would be interested to see what the discourse is. And not necessarily because it'll hurt him or whatever. It just would be interesting to see. He runs 4.48 or 4.50. I don't know. I don't think he's going to do these things. I'm just more so saying if he does some things that everyone's like, oh, I thought he was faster. Oh, I thought he was taller. Or I thought he was going to be more fluid. I just would be interesting. Like, does he slip to 5? Or is he a guy like Abdul Carter seems like a top 3 lock, probably the 2 quarterbacks. And then does Travis all of a sudden go to 4? Does he slip to 5? Like, I don't know. It's just just an interesting, surefire. Tape's amazing, but
right.
I don't know how he'll test.
Yeah, I'm not convinced he's going to test awesome either. And that will probably give some teams pause. But the smart ones will go, the tape is too freaking good.
No,
like,
it shouldn't be that. Him and Tyler Warner, 2 guys that I just think the tape's better. Yeah,
because I don't think Tyler would. I don't think Tyler's going to
I think he's going to run a lot slower than people realize. And I think.
Yeah. And then you're going to say, "Oh, we can't draft this guy in the top."
Over under 4.75 for Tyler Warren.
Ooh, it's a good one.
It might be like unfortunately spot on. That was probably
I was going to say like if I take the under, it's be like 4.73. Like yeah.
You take a tight end in the top 7 that runs sub.
What did Bowers run?
Didn't run.
All right.
He just took a stupid picture with the biggest tight end we've ever seen.
Right, and everyone's like,
figured that was a good idea.
Yeah,
it's Gronk.
But it worked out for the Raiders. Worked out for him just fine in terms of his level of production. I would still take him.
He's awesome.
He's a terrific player.
An interesting one.
All right, my last one. And it's another one of these guys that when we went into August and September, again, we're talking about just from the Patriots perspective, I'm like, oh, there's left tackles in this draft and there's wide receivers in this draft. And then it turns out there may not be, other than Josh Simmons, a real left tackle in the top part of the draft. And again, he's with the injury. And then wide receiver. Well, it's Hunter. What is he? Is he corner? Is he a wide receiver? Probably more corner than wide receiver. Tet McMillan. Not necessarily my brand, my flavor, but like he's probably not probably, I would assume he's a top 10 pick. Luther Burden is the guy I'm talking about here from the University of Missouri. His tape in 2023 is awesome. I freaking love the dude. I was like, this guy's a badass. The comps to Deebo Samuel, even though Deebo, bigger guy, Deebo 6'2", 6'1", 6'2", 220 pounds. Luther Burden's 5'11", 210. But his tape in 2023 for Missouri was awesome. His tape this year, not awesome. No. Not all his fault, Their offense was a disaster. They had quarterback problems this year, but he went from over 1,300 yards in 2023 to under 700 this year, and he wasn't missing games. He missed some time in games, but didn't miss games. And so I just don't know what he is. So, I think that seems to be my thing. Like, I shouldn't say that. I know he's going to be a solid NFL player, but now for a while there, I thought he was a top 10 pick coming into this thing. Like I was drinking that Kool-Aid.
Yeah.
And now this year goes as it does. And you're like, even with the bad offense and the bad quarterback play, shouldn't there have been a little more? He just didn't stand out a lot. And to me, when you're that talented and you're that capable too with the ball in your hands, and yet they didn't find a ton of ways to get him the ball in his hands, like what was going on there? I think that'll be a question that he's going to get asked. Like, beyond or not even beyond, like tell us what happened. Tell us why you went from 1,300 to 700. Not even tell us why one of the guys who was the best with the football in his hands 2 years ago, not only didn't he not get the football, but when he did, you didn't see the same type of player. So I'm really curious about him, because if you told me that Luther Burden doesn't end up going in the first round, if he doesn't have a great combine on all fronts, whether it's the interview part, the testing part, I wouldn't be surprised. I could also see him going nuts and then teams saying, no, he's 2023 Luther Burden, not 2024 Luther Burden. And does that warrant a top 20, top 25-ish pick?
Yeah, no, I'm on the same page as you. I think you worry, hey, look, he had 700 yards after the catch 2 years ago, and last year he had 600 yards like total. That's obviously a concern. Is he just a slot guy? Can he play outside consistently in the NFL? Is he really 210 pounds? Is he 195? Is he 5'11 and 3/4? Is he 5'9 and 5/8? He's one of those guys, like, I got to know you could play inside or outside, because I can't take you. I'd have a hard time taking a guy that high, which some people have him like 12th overall pick. Like, I don't know if I could take you if you're a slot guy, and that's it. Like he'd fit great in New England, because like Josh McDaniels loves these slot guys, and he's but New England's not taking him at 4. You know what I mean? Right. So does he fall? So he'll be an interesting one. This whole receiver class, what's Tech going to run? What's he going to run? Is he going to run? It's all those guys.
I don't think he's going to run.
I think he'll run at his pro day. It'll be a juice time, and we'll roll with that.
Right. You hope he's got to hope he's in the high 4.49.
That's the Drake London thing. If I never run, you can't tell me I'm slow or fast. Right. I just never ran.
Good player too, right? Like he's Drake London, very solid player. I wanted to throw out one more thing. Going back to Simmons, and this has been percolating in my brain for the last, 3 or 4 days. For the Patriots.
Yeah.
You're not picking him at 4, obviously. If his medicals come back good.
How high do you trade up?
Do you trade back? Do you trade back to, 12, 13, 14, somewhere in that ballpark? And that's a big drop.
How much let's say Campbell's arms are,
I think Campbell's arms are going to be like 32 and a quarter.
Let's say they're 32 and a half. They're Slater's arms. Simmons is still sitting there at 15. Do you just double up a tackle, put Onwenu and inside, and go, our offensive line's rebuilt, and like we'll take giving up next year's 2 and this year's 2, and I don't know, we'll trade Kyle Duggar and toss him to the sun for like 16 overall or something. Or 19, I don't know, whatever.
I would absolutely consider packaging with
if he falls, or Simmons, or one of these guys, and you just go, cool. Our trenches we're set. Like,
I think that the problem, and again, I'm not looking at the trade chart, so I'd have to look at not that that's the be all end all, but like, are you giving up a future one?
Yeah, then the Jets moved from 38 to 26, and they gave up like a future 3 and a 4 and like a 5 or something like that. Like,
so to me, that would be a big part of the conversation, because you just don't, again, you're expecting to be a significantly better football team next year Whether that means 6 wins, 8 wins, I don't know. But do you want to? You can't. I don't think you can still at this juncture of your build risk what could be if it doesn't. If Drake May gets hurt or I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
It takes a little while to gel under Vrabel in year one. I don't want to be sitting there going, okay, well, next year we could have been in picking 9th overall. And look, I guess if you hit on both picks, Campbell and Simmons, maybe you think less about that. You're probably not picking 9th overall, but like that would be the
I get
equation there.
100%.
But like I did wonder, like, how far? We just don't know because it's the first year of this group together. But like,
the Patriots need a quarterback to fall to 4 to trade back. I just don't think him unless Carter.
And then if Carter falls there, would you
Carter
take him? You might just take him.
Yeah, then you should just take him. I don't know why would you. Then it's like, what's the point? Although, very curious how Abdul Carter interviews. I'll just say that. He a little more Micah off the field, it seems, than I'd prefer. A little Kayvon Thibodeau Micah situation where it's like, dude, you're not going to be an Eagle unless Howie gives up the entirety of like 6 drafts. So can we stop tweeting Eagles picture? It's not happening. You have to be a professional. Time to strap it on. Dad can get rid of Twitter during the games and the whole thing. And there's just a little bit of that stuff. He's an amazing player. I would take him in a heartbeat. I'm not saying that. You're going to need a Vrabel-like character to be like, buddy, I'm in charge.
Yep.
Not you. I'm in charge.
You play for me.
That's all I would say. I have amazing talent. Just not James Franklin. It's going to need to be a real.
And as you're sort of indicating, there will be, and it hasn't happened yet. This might be the first place it just happened, by the way.
Yeah.
But there'll be conversations about that. You'll start to hear a little bit more about that as we get close. Look at you. You're breaking the. This is why
hanging out.
This is why people need to subscribe, like, listen, rate, review, do all the wonderful things. Tell your friends, tell their friends, so on and so forth about the All 32 Pod, and that is going to wrap up this edition of the All 32 Pod. We will be in Indianapolis. We will figure out how we're going to piece together the pod at the beginning of next week, but it'll be here for you in one way, shape, or form. And that's that. We appreciate you. Enjoy the weekend, and we'll see you from Indy.